Hello viewers, this is going to be the last lecture in MGP 002 and the name of the course is Philosophy of Gandhi. And in this last lecture we will be discussing the last units, unit 13 to unit 16, and the name of that block is Gandhian Ways and Means. So now what we are going to discuss, we will begin this discussion with Gandhi's ideas on the relationship between duties and rights. So what happens is that Gandhi, if you see the, Gandhi's theory on relationship between duties and rights, he evolved a theory of correlationship between these two concepts that are rights and duties, and his emphasis was more on duties instead of rights, because what you see in the Western world is that there is more emphasis on rights. So that was not the case with Gandhi, because he tried to situate this concept, this relationship in Indian context. And Indian way of life, we do give a lot of emphasis on the social setting, the type of society that we have, in that individual is a part of our society, and there is less emphasis on rights. So Gandhi stressed on duties as the basis of one's rights. This was the his conception of relationship between duties and rights. Another thing is that rights, they are derived from duties. This was what Gandhi used to say. And then Gandhi also borrowed the idea of duty from dispassionate action that is advocated by Bhagavad Gita. We all know that in Bhagavad Gita it is written that karam kiye ja aur phal ki ichha mat kar. So this is what Gandhi used to say, that there should be dispassionate action as far as duties are concerned. And then rights accrue automatically to an individual who performs his or her duties. This was his idea. And right to perform one's duty is the only right that is worth living and dying for. So if you see the relationship between duties and rights given by Gandhi, so there was more emphasis on duties instead of rights. This is because he tried to situate this relationship in the Indian setting. And this is one of the famous sayings that he used to say about duties, that begin with duties of a man and rights will follow as spring follows winter. This was one. And another famous quote by Gandhi on relationship between rights and duties is that rights that do not flow from duty well performed are not worth living. So this gives you an idea what was, this tells you that from Gandhian perspective there was more emphasis on duties instead of rights. Now, Gandhian theory of rights gives more emphasis on social service rather than the notion of self-regarding and assertive individual. Instead of absence of restraints in the Western philosophy, freedom is defined as absence of restraints, but Gandhi gave another definition. He said he favored freedom to achieve overcoming obstacles, whatever there are. So from Indian point of view, if there are restraints or if there are problems, then Gandhi defined it as, one should be able to overcome those obstacles. So obligations of positive kind, this is what he used to say. And rights are not created by state, but the state only recognizes them. And individuals have soul while the state is a soulless machine. This is what Gandhi's belief about the state was. And individual has the duty to judge the state and its laws by standards of what you call dharma, which is moral law, or what you can say morality. So an individual has the right to judge the state on the basis of morality. Is the state moral, or the state is, trying to repress the individual? So on those standards, an individual could judge the state. Now, Gandhi also talked about duty of disobedience, because he said that loyalty to a corrupt and capricious state is a sin, right? If the state is corrupt, then you are not duty bound to obey the state. Now, this was also common between Thoreau and Gandhi, because both believed state is embodiment of force and physical strength. And Gandhi favored politics that would enable people to improve their lot, their own well-being. Right? And it was also his belief in ahimsa as a means of realizing satya, which makes Gandhi to insist that resistance to injustice, if properly conducted, it will not lead to general anarchy. Right? A truly democratic state deserves the loyalty of citizens. So this is Gandhian idea that, if the state is truly democratic, then the citizens need to be loyal to the state. And it was all done through a satyagrahi, because a satyagrahi is a real constitutionalist, and disobedience to evil laws is a moral duty of a satyagrahi. This is what Gandhiji used to say. Now, if you see his ideas about duty of disobedience, then like John Locke and Jefferson, Gandhi believed that loyalty to a constitution and its laws need to be reviewed and affirmed once in every generation, right? So he wanted to ensure accountability and also have a fresh look once in every generation at the constitution. And also he used to say that a satyagrahi cooperates not due to fear of punishment, but because cooperation is essential for the idea of common good. Because we just discussed that Gandhi believed in the politics which would allow people to improve their own well-being. So that is what is meant by common good. Now, satyagraha is an act of brave and fearless. This is again, because it is easy to say that anybody can do a satyagraha, but if you see the constituents and how it is done, it is an act of the most brave, the people who are fearless, only they can resort to the technique of satyagraha. Now, a satyagrahi invites suffering to bring a change in the heart of the opponent, and non-violence was the path of those who had self-control, while aggression was the path to mastery of those without self-control. So this is what brings out the difference between non-violence and aggression, because non-violence shows self-control while aggression doesn't show self-control. Now, another thing about duties that Gandhiji said was that unlike Bentham, who believed in the individual rights, Gandhi argued in favor of common good, like T.H. Green. Now, sacrifice was an important part of human nature as per Gandhi, and duties and rights are interlinked. This is what Gandhiji said, that realization of one without the other is not possible, as both lead to common good. And he is, to quote Gandhi, individual is a social being and human beings have risen to their present status by learning to adjust individualism to the requirements of social progress. So this is how he defined the relationship between duties and rights in the Indian setting, in the Indian context. Now, talking about Swaraj, Gandhi preferred to use Swaraj instead of independence or freedom. He did not use these words like independence or freedom. He used the word Swaraj because Swaraj was an inclusive concept for Gandhi, because it was inclusive in the sense it included political, economic, social and moral dimensions, emphasizing on the utmost need for individuals to be as perfect as possible. Now, Gandhi borrowed the term Swaraj from Vedas. And if you see the meaning comes close to two things. One is self-rule and another is self-control. Now, instead of English meaning that implies freedom without restraints, Gandhian Swaraj meant all-round awakening, which would include moral, social, educational, economic and political. Now, true freedom is conformity to moral laws, the inner conscience and the law of one's true being. Now, Swaraj as self-control, what does it mean? Freedom means self-control, conquest over self that can be attained by being fearless. Now, it needs self-discipline, self-purification and self-realization. Now, Swaraj as self-control would mean mainly three things. One is freedom is an individual, not collective quality. This is one. Then second is it includes civil liberties like press, speech, etc. And then there is also a distinction between inner and outer freedom, where inner freedom anchors and sustains outer freedom. Swaraj is a balance between individual freedom and social restraint. Now, Swaraj as self-control, there are certain individuals need to have certain qualities. And what are those qualities? They are discipline, then there is voluntary loyalty, and then there is solidarity and internal freedom. A person truly realizes freedom if he listens to the inner conscience or the inner voice. And it is easy to resist evil if there are certain qualities with an individual. And those qualities are, one is fearlessness. There should be no fear of anything or anybody. Then there should be self-control. And then there should be spirit of self-sacrifice. And last is non-attachment and a feeling of renunciation. Right, so these all qualities combine to give Swaraj, they would combine to explain Swaraj as self-control. Now, there is also something called Swaraj as self-rule. Swaraj also means positive freedom to participate in the process of politics in every possible way. And Gandhi focused on Gram Swaraj. Now, what was the idea of Gram Swaraj? Village was at the center of social, political, and economic development. This was one. And then village is the natural, Gandhi used to say that village is a natural construct, while city is an artificial construct. And it was the British rule that had destroyed village industries in India, and there was need for renewal of villages through constructive program. And we have discussed constructive program in our previous lectures. Then there was, Gandhi favored self-sufficient villages, and welfare of masses was important for economic freedom of India. And political freedom would be meaningless if there was no economic freedom, right? So this was the idea of Gram Swaraj given by Gandhi. And then Gandhi, as far as his views on state are concerned, Gandhi had two views on state. One was that the state represents an authority that poses a threat to individual liberty. This is one. And the second one is that state represents violence in an organized form. So Gandhi was concerned about any increase in state power. Gandhi was concerned about this phenomena because state has no right to dehumanize or suppress the individual. That organized power should not be used by state to dehumanize or suppress the individuals. And since state is a soulless machine, it can never be weaned away from violence to which it owes its existence. It was basically because of this, Gandhi used to say that if individuals can recognize their power and use it in non-violent manner to bring out Sarvodaya we have discussed in the earlier lectures again, it means rise of all. If we can do this, it will decrease the state power because the state has monopolistic and coercive nature of power, right? So this is what Gandhi said, that individuals need to recognize their own power, and you should be able to use this in a non-violent manner for upliftment, for rise of all, which is Sarvodaya, right? Now, talking about Swadeshi. Swadeshi means local self-reliance and use of local knowledge and abilities. Now, it is basically a protectionist technique which was employed by Gandhi against the mercantile policies of the British. Now, Swadeshi, it has a larger meaning because it means to rely on your own strength of your body, mind and soul. It also propagates simple living and to maintain one's dignity. And it is also an economic doctrine because what it means is not mass production but production by the masses. Now, in Swadeshi economy, village economy and local industry play an important role, and it aims at self-sufficiency of village community, and it also avoids economic dependence on external market forces that could make village community vulnerable. And it also avoids unnecessary, unhealthy, wasteful and therefore environmentally destructive transportation. Swadeshi was a call for consumer to be aware of the violence he or she is causing by supporting those industries that result in poverty and harm to the workers. And lastly, Khadi emerged as a symbol of Swadeshi. So Swadeshi basically was an economic idea, and Gandhi's idea was to make the villages centering on the idea of Gram Swaraj, and villages need to be self-sufficient in terms of their economy so that they do not depend on other units. Now let's talk about Satyagraha. Gandhi initially used the term passive resistance because he did not use the word Satyagraha to begin with. But there was a problem with this term because it has a passive resistance it is a foreign term, so it has a foreign origin, and also it did not reflect aspects of truth and moral courage that Gandhi associated with non-violent political resistance. So passive resistance basically, I know it was a term which was narrow in meaning, while Gandhi wanted, Gandhi's ideas, they had a bigger meaning. So what Gandhiji used is that instead of passive resistance, he used Satyagraha, which is, and there are two meanings there is one big meaning that we can associate with Satyagraha. That would mean, Satyagraha would mean to ask for truth. There has to be a relentless pursuit, in which one individual has to constantly seek truth. So Satyagraha has a bigger meaning than passive resistance. This is why Gandhiji used this term. Now, if you see Satyagraha, there is, if you want to contrast Satyagraha with something else, it will be Duragraha. Duragraha is to, holding on by force. So one is, because, Satyagraha uses non-violence, while on the other hand, Duragraha uses force. So these two things, Satyagraha and Duragraha, they are opposite, contradictory forces. So if you want to situate these two terms in India's freedom struggle, so the British were using the method of Duragraha because they were using force to suppress Indian national movement, while the Indians were using, the technique of satyagraha because they were constantly trying to seek truth, right? So through non-violence. So this is how you can situate these two terms. And there were a number of sources that Gandhiji gave. For example, for the technique of satyagraha, there were a number of sources. For example, one is, theological tenets of Jainism, Buddhism, Upanishads and Bhagavad Gita. Every of these books, they say that, there has to be non-violence and one individual should be constantly looking for truth. So this is how, Gandhiji built this concept of satyagraha. And he was also able to, contrast satyagraha with passive resistance, because there is basic difference between the two. Now, the first thing is that you should know that satyagraha is a moral weapon based on superiority of soul. That means satyagraha is more moral in nature, right? It is a bigger weapon. It leads to a superiority of soul. It has a spiritual meaning. Now, passive resistance is a weapon of the weak, because while satyagraha can be practiced only by the bravest, we have discussed this lecture earlier, that somebody who is weak cannot take up the technique of satyagraha. Now, while the bravest only can do this, and because there has to be courage to die without killing anyone, right? So the idea is that you can suffer the extreme, but you will not resort to violence. The another thing is that passive resistance aims to embarrass the opponent into submission. But if you see satyagraha aims to wean away the opponent from error through love and self-sacrifice. Because here the idea is that keep suffering yourself, don't retaliate or don't use violence. Because there will come a point where your opponent will see your suffering and there will be change of heart. And this is when there will be success of the idea of satyagraha. And passive resistance, if you see, it is a static concept. While the idea of satyagraha is dynamic, it keeps evolving, because as you suffer more and more, you require more and more energy to overcome the problem. And even passive resistance is a negative concept, while if you see satyagraha, it is a positive concept, because it seeks a change in the heart of the opponent, right? And then Gandhiji, there were certain discipline that Gandhiji laid down for a satyagrahi, and there are certain points that he had given. For example, one is that, a satyagrahi should not harbor any anger against anybody. But, at the same time, he or she should be able, they should suffer the anger of the opponent. We have just discussed, that there should be no retaliation. There should be no, taking up of violence, because at the heart of satyagraha is that you have to suffer the maximum, even if you have to die. So this was the one thing. Then he also said that you should also refrain from insults and swearing. This has to be done by a satyagrahi. Then even if you have to protect your opponent, the opponent should be protected from insult or attack, right? It is not that since he or she is your opponent, he can be killed, right? So even protection of your opponent is one of the discipline code for a satyagrahi. And then he also gives certain principles. Gandhiji gave certain principles that have to be followed by a satyagrahi. The first one is non-violence. We know that, at no circumstances in Gandhian ways and means, violence was not justified. Then keep your path on, keep walking on the path of truth. Another was non-stealing and chastity, right? One should not lie, and there should be no habit of stealing. Also, you should also live a life which is more spiritual in nature, which will lead to non-possession and fearlessness. Because if you have nothing to lose, this is when you can be fearless, right? And then also, this was also one of the key components of Gandhi's constructive program, because he said that there has to be freedom from untouchability. Because as long as India is divided within its own people, you cannot unite to take on the British. So this is why he said that a true satyagrahi has to seek freedom from untouchability. And at the same time, Gandhi also appealed to have equal respect for all the religions. Again, the same thing, that we should not be divided on the basis of religion, because if you are divided internally, then the external powers will take advantage of your divisions. This is what the British were doing. So this is why Gandhi, as an important part of Gandhi's constructive program, both freedom from untouchability and equal respect for all the religions was sought by Gandhiji. Right now, if what we see of the Satyagraha program, Gandhi carried out successful Satyagraha against the British in South Africa. In the earlier slides, again, we have discussed that he was able to bring the plight of the Indians in South Africa to the mainstream, and ultimately the British had to relent to Gandhian ways and means in Satyagraha in South Africa. Then when he came back to India, Gandhiji did a number of satyagraha movements within India, and there are many examples. One is Champaran, then there was Kheda Satyagraha, another satyagraha was Ahmedabad mill workers strike, yet another example is Bardoli, and he also did that salt satyagraha, right? So all these aspects we have discussed in the earlier lectures, and Gandhian ways and means became so important, that even the leaders from foreign countries, they used his methods to achieve freedom for their own countries, because two examples are Martin Luther King and another was Nelson Mandela. Nelson Mandela basically used Gandhian methods to fight apartheid in South Africa. And within South Africa, Gandhi became an example of India's soft power, because his methods were used by the different leaders within different countries to fight the yoke of colonialism. Because at that time, a number of countries of Africa, they were fighting for their own independence, and Gandhi was able to mobilize these people through his, these people became attracted to Gandhian ways and means, and they used similar methods to fight the colonial governments within their own countries. And it can be argued that if one wants sustainable peace, it cannot be achieved unless we follow Gandhian ways and means, because in the current context, Gandhi becomes very, very important, because these are the times where we have issues like sustainable development. We are trying to achieve this idea of sustainable development, and sustainable development basically means the development which will benefit the coming generations. We should not be sacrificing the stake of future generations, because we should not be exploiting the environment too much as generation is coming, and their interests are to be taken care of. So in that context, Gandhian ways and means are very, very important, because he appealed to spirituality, and he wanted that man and nature, they should be able to coexist in harmony. Thank you.